Marketing is about getting the basics right. What is your positioning? What is your messaging? What is your distribution channel? How are you getting it in front of customers? Are customers happy? If customers are happy, can you complete the loop? Right? I think in general, if we get all of these things right, you are done with almost 50 to 60% of the work that actually marketing needs to do. Your product engineering and technology are the heart of like the startup and the company you're trying to build, and marketing is, I wouldn't say support function, but it's definitely the flanking function. Like the core assault will happen from the product, and you have to sort of help them up to that, get to the stage. But if we have that humility to understand that and sort of like position ourselves as that for the organization, we'll be much more successful.
The point is that all of that content that we're throwing out in the market is not necessarily always read by those CXOs, because they
Yes,
have like 10,000 other things, right?
absolutely.
So they have this whole army of people who are their second or third level leaders, even managers, right, who are managing teams and facing day-to-day problems and trying to find a solution that can get through the day, get through the project. Even those really work as catalysts and influencers.
But I also think that if you look at all the analytics and just like optimize based on that, you'll end up with a BuzzFeed for ITSM, and then that's not what you're there for. You need a CIO, as you said, to look at your website, to look at your blog, to look at what you're saying, and say, hey, yeah, like these guys know what you're talking about. I am not interested in having them spend time on my blog. I'm interested in having them buy. I think this is a huge thing that people miss when they only look at analytics.
Welcome to the Marketing Couch. How often do you come across marketing leaders who have not done once, not twice, but three times 0 to 1 startup journeys? Not too often, right? My guest for today's episode has done exactly that. Today, my guest is Sairam Krishnan. Sairam is head of marketing at Atomicwork, an agentic AI startup that replaces traditional IT help desks with intelligent agents that handle everything from password resets to complex workflows through natural conversation. They serve enterprises with 2,000 plus employees who want their IT teams focused on strategy, not routine tickets. Sairam started his career at Freshworks as employee number 8, where he led content and later rose to lead corporate marketing. He also held a marketing leadership role at Wingify, and during the pandemic, he was marketer in residence at Axel's India office. This is Sairam's third 0 to 1 journey, and at Atomic Work, he is responsible for crafting and executing brand strategy, content marketing, and PR initiatives. In January 2025, Atomic Work announced its Series A funding of $25 million led by Khosla Ventures. With that, I bring you Sairam Krishnan. Hey Sairam, good to have you on the Marketing Couch.
Thank you so much for having me, Jaideep. My pleasure.
I'm delighted to have you. I have been tracking your work for a while, and I'm also tracking Atomic Work, which is an exciting place now. I see quite a lot of feed, quite a lot of work in on my LinkedIn feed. So I'm really excited to talk about you. There are so many exciting things, so many interesting things. I feel you as a marketer. So I can't wait to have this conversation today. So thanks for really coming into the show.
No, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the nice things about my work. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So, Sai, let's get started. Tell me a little bit about what Atomic Work does and what do you do there and who is your audience?
Yeah. Thank you. Atomic Work is an agentic service management startup. What we do is we sell ITSM and ESM software to large American enterprises, and I lead marketing there. And I've been here since the start of the company, which was in 2022.
Okay, great. So, help me understand what is agentic.
Right. So it's not that complicated. I think in a lot of ways, like we try to make it, because of the way that we sell it and because of the way that we talk about it, we have made it a little bit more complicated. It's very simple. In a lot of ways, AI has come with uh, forward in such a way that it can do a lot of things for us by imputing what we intend to do with the commands and with the work that we've already been doing. What we mean by an agentic service management startup is like in service management, there are a lot of workflows and there are a lot of automations and processes that are very, very everyday, which an IT team has to do. What we intend to do and what we are doing already for like a bunch of customers is that a lot of these processes become automated, a lot of these processes become automatic. So IT management and IT folks in the team can focus on what's really important, actually, making change for the organization, actually doing the important things that will take the business ahead. So that's what Atomicwork does.
Okay, and I think it couldn't be a right or better time to really speak about agentic as I think we have moved from predictive to generative to now agentic. And I'm really curious because I speak to a lot of people. I'm also spending last 2 years, at least 2 3 years now, pretty much with AI startups, and agentic is definitely talk of the town. And a lot of people are actually sort of discussing that whether it is a hype or whether it's like one of those passing wave, or this is going to stay here. And to me, at least it makes a lot of sense. Even if you look at our marketing flow, I mean, pretty much I see at least a few areas clearly that can go in agentic way, and we'll talk about it hopefully a little later. But talk about the market. I mean, so who is your customer? Where you spoke briefly about the customer, but is the US is your main market, or any
Right.
other markets?
Yeah, the US is our main target market. Like North America is our main target market, but like we do have like a couple of customers in Asia Pacific, which is Australia, and and we do get a lot of interest from the ANZ region as well. But the major customer region is North America. And like the thing is, like anybody above 2,000 employees, which is like after Fortune 500, Fortune 1,000, all of these companies have a lot of big IT teams, right? And they genuinely want to take the business ahead by making work easy for people. And what happens, like, and you've worked in large organizations, Jaideep, you will know, a lot of work sometimes become admin work. Like, I want this, give me this app, the app provisioning, passwords, this and that, even like asset management, like this, like assign this laptop to me, this one, and so on. So all of this becomes very irritating for like a normal organization to like get through, because like if 20 to 25% of your year goes in like just all of this, that's like incredibly large amounts of work put together in the org. And that's what we intend to sort of completely remove, so that employees can focus on what's important to them and the business goes ahead.
Okay, so switching a little bit on your side right now. So what I gathered from internet and also speaking, reading about you or doing a bit of research about you is you are, to me, you are a first principle thinker. Like you like to solve problems from literally breaking that up into smaller modules. So I'm curious, what is the problem that currently you are solving for your organization? If you can share a little bit at a high level.
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's that your assessment is basically correct. Even like earlier, like this is my third year Atomic Work, but even like very early when we are trying to solve a couple of problems, one of the things that, and I took that as a compliment, one of the things that my boss, Vijay, the CEO of Atomic Work, told me was that size is a simplifier. I think I see that as a general part of like how I work and like what I bring to the organization. The thing is, like, it's a technology organization, right? And I've worked in technology all my life. I worked in startups all my life. What sometimes we do is we overcomplicate a lot of stuff, because in general in technology so much is available to us, and when so much is available we take in a lot. We're like, why don't we use this? Why don't we do that? Why can't we do this? But in general, and I would love to hear your take on this as well, like with your experience. Marketing is about getting the basics right. What is your positioning? What is your messaging? What is your distribution channel? How are you getting it in front of customers? Are customers happy? If customers are happy, can you complete the loop, right? I think in general, if we get all of these things right, you are done with almost 50 to 60% of the work that actually marketing needs to do. After that is that moving the needle, so that you, like in this old age stereos, you just need to get the hi-fi everything to the last level. What happens with startups especially is that the basics sometimes don't sit very properly in the early stages, but that you cannot
Why
blame that
why
all
is
on the
it so?
start,
Why do you think that is the case?
because you're figuring out a lot of things as well.
Hmm.
You're not Pepsi. Like, you don't
Hmm.
understand who your target market is. You don't understand what your messaging is. You don't know all of that yet.
Hmm.
So when you're trying to figure it out, you're
Hmm.
obviously bound to make a few mistakes. And
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say is that when there is so much being thrown at you, when there are so many options, you make mistakes.
Yes.
You make more mistakes. I see my role is like, bringing that down into the most basic answers. Do we have everything right? For example, a very simple thing, very tactical thing, an everyday thing. Today there's a blog going out. is it actually interesting for my target audience? It's a simple question, but because when we get into the weeds, we are like, hey, here's this content calendar for this month, here's the content calendar for this year, we just fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. We're not asking the tactical question.
So
Okay,
how do you
is this
decide a blog is
actually,
interesting or not? Let me just
you
double
have
click
to
on that.
keep asking that question over and over again. And this is what sometimes in startups we get wrong. We I don't think we get it wrong. I think I'll rephrase that. I think we lose sight of, because in startups are very high, pace environments. Like,
Mhm.
for example, like in the last, like, I have a deck right now. It's open on one of the tabs, in which Riverside is also open. In one of the tabs, I have my entire quarter's, performance and what we've been able to do. I have in some ways my next quarter's plan. I have in some ways, I have in another tab what we did last week, because we're just looking at it with the team. Now, if I'm going through all of this, where is the time required, and where is the sort of nuance or this split second decision required to see we are doing this? Does that actually make sense? Because it's like go 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 all the time. And I think I see my role a lot, especially in a technology organization with a very structured. Like when you work with superior teams, right? My CEO is like, somebody with like high pedigree, comes with like a lot of experience building startup, probably the best business brain I've ever worked with, right? And then my
And I
product
think
team
hyper
is
energy
like,
also, as far as I knew him.
oh, a lot, a lot, a lot, which is very, which is,
Which
I
is
think it works
infectious,
out.
right? I mean, it
Yeah, yeah,
really.
yeah. It works out for us, I think, in a certain way, because, like, I'm from Pondicherry. We, like, where I grew up, we used to have afternoon siestas. The entire town shut down. And for somebody like me, who likes to drink at the end of the day and all of that, and this is somebody who's like on, on, on. I think the Jugalbandi works really well, because I can stop him, and I tend to like be that sort of like factor which I can say, okay, hold on just a bit. Can we look at it a little bit more deeply and so on? But it works out, because, like, I think he definitely does infuse that energy into the entire org. And coming back to my earlier point, like, it's not just him. Like, my product team, our engineering team, these are really really like top of the, probably the best in the country in terms of talent, as the Atomicwork, in terms of B2B SaaS talent. And so when we have that, I sort of have to get my game up in all of those respects, then ask that question over and over again. Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? So yeah, it needs to be asked all the time.
Yeah, I think having worked in both larger organizations and smaller organizations, one of the things that I've noticed is, as a marketeer, your fundamental thing is to really know your customer well, right? And to be able to know them, you really need to know who is your customer, right? And it's very easier to say that, hey, my ICP is like a CDO or a CIO. The point is that all of that content that we are throwing out in the market is not necessarily always read by those CXOs, because they have
Yes,
like 10,000 other things, right?
absolutely.
So they have this whole army of people who are their second or third level leaders, even managers, right, who are managing teams and facing day-to-day problems and trying to find a solution that can get through the day, get through the project. Even those really work as catalysts and influencers. The question is that, do we really think about them when we are designing this program,
Yeah,
right? And how do we design assets and content that actually touches the entire spectrum of these buyers, right, within my overall cohort?
yeah. I think that's the primary question of, like, a online marketer, in India or anywhere else. Actually, even in the valley, are you? I'll give you an example of how I think about this. Right. For example, if I tell you, Jaideep, that there's this book that I'm reading. It's a great book. You'll be like, "Huh, okay, cool." You make a mental note of it, and you're like, you have other stuff to do, right? And you carry on. 3 days later, 4 days later, you're meeting another friend, somewhere in Calcutta, and they tell you, "Hey, this is book," and you're like, like two people in one week, great. But you're not taking action yet. You're like, okay, you file it away. The third time somebody tells you, and then you have the time, or you're sitting in front of the computer, and it turns up on a book review, it turns up in, I don't know, the Statesman or something, and you're like, oh, this the third time. And then you're in front of the laptop, you're able to you're going to Amazon and you're ordering that book. That's the number of times, somebody needs to see a product or learn about a product before they take that action to buy it. And this is for a 300, 400 rupees book. So imagine if, like, how many touch points you need for $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 product.
Yeah.
That is going to underlie your entire products, employee, sort of employee layer. If that is the case, how much do you need to be, and where do you need to be? I think the answer is everywhere and at all times, with different viewpoints. And I don't mean to say that you take away the brand language. What I want to say is that you, in a lot of ways, B2B SaaS marketing or software marketing is about education. People don't know you, you need to get in front of them, and then you need to tell them that this is a product for you that you are interested in. So I have a persona, like, there's no need to like go deep into it, but the persona is like that of a tech forward CEO who really wants to innovate and who really wants to adopt new technology and like see what's happening in the world. So if I have and like obviously there's like layers of demographics into it, but let's not get into that. But if I have this person um, who I need to sort of attract. And therefore, there are layers. What is the second layer of this? What is the third layer of this? As you said, I need content that is channelized throughout. Like I'll have like, for example, one of the things that we do, sorry, is these video conversations with like, a very, very senior CIOs. So, why? Because other CIOs watch, like, hey, my friend is on, and what is this person using? Who is this company? That's one layer. The other layer is actual tactical stuff, which is like, hey, like, how do you provision this for, asset management? Or how do you provision CMDB? Like, it's very, here's good, content about this. Actually, one of our biggest competitors, has a forum where a number of our, solution pages are linked. So that's a big win for us because we've gotten to that level, which is tactical. And then there's the middle layer in which we are talking about slightly, conceptual things like, adopting AI for ITSM at this point. Now, here's the director level person, a manager who wants to look at, hey, what's happening? And here's a slightly casual look they can take. So all of this is available to them, and we have to build all of this layer. And the question next would be, as a startup, what is most important? Why can you prioritize one or two of these? I don't think you can. I think one of the things that has happened is because of how ubiquitous marketing has become and how there's so much content out there in the world. If you want to make a dent, both quality and quantity have to be there, and I think that's where we've been able to. I'm not like very, very happy about like everything that we've done, but definitely, that we've been made a certain dent, with what we've done. I think there's a lot more to do for us.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to the point that you made in terms of impressions, right? Impressions meaning how many times this message is coming in different forms and shapes in different platforms or channels to me, and I see that same logo attached, right? So I
Yeah,
think that is one of the key important things for a marketer to sort of solve. The second aspect of it, as much as we would like to think about the decision makers really thinking about sitting and thinking about, hey, is this technology can solve my problem? I think they have a lot of other issues that they deal with. So as a CIO, you are also dealing with, maybe 30 vendors or 40 vendor solutions, and your one of the
absolutely.
challenges is how do I rationalize this, how do I look at my 3 to 5 years of window and see that who is going to continue to be a supplier for me over this period, who is innovating faster in this, how do I get all of that thing to work together, just the interoperability part of it, right? So there are a lot of other aspects as a marketer I think we have an opportunity to address. And the more we understand, I guess, that space in terms of what are the other 10 applications maybe also that my CIO or my target audience probably is grappling with in terms of managing it, both in terms of life cycle, cost, security, interoperability, all of that, right? As a tech marketer, I mean, like, I think these are all opportunities, like you rightly said, right?
Yes.
So I think in terms of going back to the point that whether or not you make content or build content only for one persona or you build for the entire chain, who are the key influencers, decision makers, and catalysts, and so on, and make content for all of that. And then also, I think early stage, probably even as a content marketer, you have to still look at every week the consumption pattern, and make a sense of whether or not a specific asset is really taking attention, or a specific or type of article or posts that I see is getting more traction than other, which means obviously people care for those areas, right? So the analytics part of it is also critical, right? And with all of that, obviously going back to that
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
main point, right? Your time, I guess, it's a speed at which you need to not just grasp all of that,
Yes.
analyze all of that, but then to react on push back. Sorry, that would obviously double down on content that probably is what you see are getting more uptake.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a little bit of like a different viewpoint on this. I am a, like, I definitely believe in analytics. I definitely believe in like looking at the numbers to see what's doing well, what's not doing well. But I also think that if you look at all the analytics and just like optimize based on that, you'll end up with a BuzzFeed for ITSM. And then that's not what you're there for. You need a CIO, as you said, to look at your website, to look at your blog, to look at what you're saying and say, hey, yeah, like these guys know what they're talking about. I am not interested in having them spend time on my blog. I'm interested in having them buy. I think this is a huge thing that people miss when they only look at analytics. That's one part. The other part is that when you're very early and when you don't have enough content on your platform, I think, looking at numbers is a waste of time. I think I wrote about this just a little bit ago in my newsletter. The thing is, if you don't, an example will be better. Like a long time ago, I was talking to a couple of friends of mine, they're founders, and they were like, Sai, we did webinars, and webinars are not working, and so we are because we looked at the numbers, we didn't like them, so we are going to move on to other stuff. I'm like, okay, great. Like, how did you figure out they're not working? Because they were like, nice site, not many people were coming in. We didn't see any conversions on that. I asked them how many webinars they ran. They said two. And so therefore, and the founder will not always understand this, so you'll have to sort of like, I mean, it's a privilege to work with founders who have done this 2 times 3 times like I have, because I don't have to explain to them the nuance of this. I never have to explain to Vijay all of this. He understands this, and the first layer of the conversation is almost not there. We can get into the second layer of the conversation, but like I had to explain to my friends then that, hey guys, like unless you do 12 of them over 6 months, there is no point in measuring anything.
True.
Because how will you people know, like you're not Apple, people don't know that you're doing these webinars. It'll take that much time for you to figure out, and then you'll have to recycle this stuff and so on. So I gave them this whole gyan on how to do this, but
Yeah.
then that's what happens. Like people do 3 things and they're like, hey, it's not working. 24, you need to do it 24 times, then tell me it's not working. Okay, I agree with you. And therefore over indexing on analytics early is not that great an idea as well.
Fair point, fair point. And considering that it's also a time where you want to keep experimenting and you have that leeway to actually experiment that, and perhaps more through storytelling, right? We have this clinical approach sometimes as we talk about problem, we talk about solution, we talk about problem, we talk about solution, right?
Yeah.
But people love to hear what their peers are doing. People love to see that how a specific company has solved problems that so much they can correlate, right? And for that, you need actually a lot of variations, a lot of numbers.
No, no, absolutely. I think, what, how I would explain that is there are phases to it. Very early stage is not your measuring phase. It's a doing phase. It's a creating phase.
Yeah,
You, like, for
yeah,
4 or 5 years, all you need to do is
yeah,
like create, create,
yeah,
create.
yeah,
Put yourself on the map as much as you can. Experiment. There will come a time when there's a next level. When things are working. You're at a certain revenue number, and you're like, okay, now it's time to consolidate. That's the time when you look at the numbers, and sometimes these are not the same skill sets as well as marketers, and you have to be very aware of that, to fill that gap in sort of the team as well, to see that, okay, now we are in this position, now we need to consolidate, we need to look at what we've been doing, we need to see where the gaps are, what's working, what's not working, can we explore more on the things that are working, and push that to to saturate them and get the most out of that, and so on. So that is a slightly different phase, and then there will be a third phase in which it becomes brand. So
yeah,
this is very rough, but this is something I've learned over, like, this is my third 0 to 1. So I know a bit about the phases that startups have. So there is a creation phase, and there's a putting yourself on the map sort of phase. Then there is a consolidation, measurement, and like optimization phase.
yeah,
And then there is the push towards brand phase, in
yeah,
which it
yeah,
becomes very, very important for you to, because you're now at a certain scale, and it
yeah,
becomes very, very important for you to be situated among these like leaders in the group, so that the company can go to the next level.
yeah. And if you draw the analogy of any brand or even we as personal brands, it is actually the same, right? It takes a lot of time for first people to even register that you exist,
Absolutely.
right? And for that, you need to just keep doing impressions, because I think that's like given. See, the other thing that I keep discussing is that at any given point of time, 5% of your buyers are actually active. 95% of your audience are just learning, warming themselves up, seeing, hearing stories, window shopping. They have no immediate need or intention
Yes.
to buy, right? So if you're just focusing on 5%, thinking, the rest are, when they are ready, I'll do something, that's just not going to work, right? That's not how it works. So you'll have to take them along with you in this journey.
Yeah.
Build enough equity with them before they sort of start trusting you, tracking you, maybe even, and that's is part of the, I think, whole brand building journey, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and I think like there are two angles to this this particular aspect. It's that when you are doing this for people, when you are creating this, one part is content marketing, sure, is like putting in front, but the other part is also product marketing, especially for a product like ours, which is technical, which goes very into the weeds of like how a certain process, because ITSM is a very set process. See, IT in an organization is a set process with a like set ways of doing things,
Highly
and
mature.
it, highly mature, and you need to do it that way so that the scale of the organization sort of computes with it. Now for that, product marketing is incredibly important to communicate to people who are not in the buying phase that hey, there are better ways of doing these things, there are better ways of doing these things, and so on. So that's, I think, people, and I think this is also something, because like even though I may say that this is my third 0 to 1, this is like this is just my second decade, right, in marketing. And like you're learning every time. Like one thing that I learned very early was that like in uh, uh, in early stages of B2B SaaS in India, we thought product marketing and brand marketing and marketing were the same thing. We only did product marketing, and this is during the days of like all the earlier folks like Zoho, Freshworks, and all that. It took all of us a little time to understand that cop marketing is different from brand marketing, is different from product marketing, is different from content marketing, and so like I was part of that evolution myself, and to understand okay, these are different things that need different and leadership is a completely different sort of ball game altogether, and so on. But like, and it depends on the product as well. In a technical product like Atomicwork, marketing is a central part of like what we are trying to do and what we're trying to communicate to the audience when they are not in that phase of buying. And so therefore what happens is we have, at least in the last like 6 to 8 months, we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's the best way to communicate the product is, best way to talk about our features is. Like I have a really good team, and I think we have done a really good job with what we have at this point. But is it a really great job in terms of like where the industry is? I'm not sure. And I think that is where like, and this is like for me and my lead of product marketing, we've been having this conversation at least this last, not this last week, the week before that. We just sat for 2 days looking at the messaging. Are we doing it properly? Are we doing it properly? I had a headache, and trying to figure out, and I don't think we're happy. I don't think we're there yet. And we're still trying to figure out that.
And this
But
is product
all of
messaging
this
or
is
this is
important.
brand messaging?
Product messaging. And because our vision and mission are sort of clear, like I was able to say to you very clearly that we are trying to make business easier by making employees' lives easier. That's what we do. Like there's no like there's no confusion there. But the thing is, as we go, like what exact problem does it solve? It solves a bunch of problems actually. So am I hitting it correct way for the CIO to immediately understand, for the IT director to immediately understand? We are still figuring that out from a messaging level, but it's a good place to be in, honestly, in terms of like how far we've come. But all of this is important for that second layer to understand. Like if you don't get the messaging right, they won't immediately get it because they are not looking to buy at this point. But you need to tell them that hey, we are innovating, this is a new way of doing stuff, but it also solve all the problems you already have. Now how do you say that? That's the
Correct, correct. And then when they are getting ready, I think one of the aspect probably that works importantly for most of the brands in at least SaaS tech space is objection handling. So in the qualifying stage, what are the things typically that a buyer would look at as a checklist? And where they typically your delivery folks, your customer success folks, and your sales folks, of course, they should be able to. They ideally have seen are the best people to tell. These are some of the things that we seek from clients pushing back, right? I think that again
yeah.
is a good opportunity to tap into from a content perspective.
No, absolutely. I think so. In a way, we've tried to do this, but we're still early.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think,
I think just few
yeah.
years, and I already see the scale and the depth and the breadth. Honestly, is something that always surprises me. And now I actually almost daily basis, following you guys. Kudos, honestly.
No,
So,
thank you.
Sai, what do you do? So, do you have an in-house team, or do you work with agency? What is the model that you prefer, and what works for you in your
No,
experience?
like my entire team is in house. We have very minimal outsourcing, and I think that we figured this out very early, Vijay and I. And I think I had like Vijay is also very technical. Founder. He's an engineer, then product guy, but more so he's a very business. As I said, probably the best business brain I've worked with. For like, and he won't like. You'll have to convince him of something. He's not going to be convinced, but just because you have experience, I believe you. That's not how he works. So I have to convince him of a certain thing, and we tried doing it with agencies to keep costs down and all of that. But then this is something that I have learned over a period of time. If you want high quality, you better build a team that compounds. You better build a team whose impact compounds. And I think once Vijay and I sort of like agreed to that, and sort of like aligned on that, it was very easy for us to sort of figure out, who we needed, what were the skills that we needed to do, that we needed to bring in house, and what were the small things that we could do, outsource. Even our design is in house, like our
Hmm.
website, all of it is done in house. Chief of staff Ramesh, like, he's also former marketer, product manager, and so, like, he's also, like, the thing is, it's such a stellar team. I have help everywhere, so
Hmm.
it generally, like, it's not an easy job, but it's definitely easier with all the gang around. It's a very, very sort of, it's very skilled sort of people, and also I have worked with them for a long time. Like, these are people I've worked with at Freshworks. I've worked with at several, I've worked with other places as well. So
So the trust is
most
there.
of,
I think that
yes,
plays a very
yes,
important role, of course.
no, it's a huge part in, like, the pace of the work. Like, as you can
Hmm.
see, as you said, in 2 years we've gotten this far. The reason is that, as I said, the first layer of conversation doesn't need to happen. I told you this, right? In which I don't, for example, if I go to, Vijay, and say, hey Vijay, I'm doing this, I don't have to explain to him why. He sort of understands what I'm trying to do, and we can go to the next part of the conversation. For example, earlier this year, late last year, I told him, next year, we have to go to the US, and we have to shoot all these CIO interviews in person in the valley with these superstar CIOs. And I didn't have to explain to him that I was trying to elevate the brand, that I was trying to, put out better content that CIOs will watch. That entire conversation did not take place. His next conversation is, okay, tell me, what's the budget? What are you doing? How are you doing this? Do you have support there? What do you need? So this is what helps. Same way with, like, for example, my head of product marketing, or my chief, our chief of staff, Ramesh. We just have to say, hey Ramesh, I'm trying to do this, and he gets it. And he's like, okay, what do you need? This is what we need to do. Okay, so I, go get it done. Same way, like, my field marketing lead, who leads all of this, the things that we do in the US, and in events and so on. I've worked with him in two places before. My friend of more than, like, almost 12, 13 years. So immediately, like, sort of, you don't have to go explain your intention.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
intent is sort of immediately, and
Yeah.
it moves to tactics.
Yeah.
That's why the pace has sort of worked out.
Yeah. And in the way I look at it is that in some way you've earned that, right? Because, and that helps. I mean, because when you have done that work in the past, maybe, and you have worked together in the past, that confidence has come because you already earned that. And maybe you have confidence on certain people because they have earned it, right?
No, absolutely.
I really don't think we are living at a time where your pedigrees and credentials really, it matters when you enter somewhere, but after that it's only every step in a way you earn it and you move it, right? So I think it really plays a lot. And just going back to that point of I think one of the other things that I asked, the reason I asked about the agency part is that one of the challenges I see in the agency model is we do a lot of this moment marketing, right? And that can only come from your immersive way of working with the market, with the cohorts, and understanding the nuances of what are you trying to solve and whom you're trying to serve in a very, very immersive way. And those moment marketing otherwise I think is not going to come from an agency. You still
No,
would require your feet deep inside the water, right? And then you
no,
end up doing a
absolutely.
lot of coordination that is really admin time.
Oh, no, no, absolutely. I think this is a great point. I'll tell you another story. Like, so basically, I wrote about this again. Like, I've sort of like transformed or changed the way we think about content in the org to inbound. I don't say content anymore. Like, we don't have a content lead. Ida, who works with me, she's my head of inbound
Inbound.
marketing. So she controls SEO, she controls content, and she controls social. And Ida's been there with me a year now. And the thing is, the way that she was able to get the see, content also compounds, and she's been writing, commissioning, editing for a year. And obviously, she's already an SEO expert. So I think that's one thing that I was very keen on, that somebody who leads our content should also be an SEO person.
Huge
And so
advantage. Yeah.
she's so huge advantage. So what happened with that was, like, I was able to, or rather, she was able to compound her learning about what we are attempting to do. And now she leads social, and we have a person, Helen, who's at social, and she's talented on her own. But the subject knowledge that comes from Ida over a year of working immediately translate into the movement marketing that you see. It's not what happens with movement marketing sometimes is it's diverse from the context of the product itself, or the context of the domain you are in. It becomes like, hey, something happened in the world, let's just put out something. But that's not how
Yeah.
it is. It should be combined with what you are actually trying to do, for the world, for your customers. So I think that again compounds, and so therefore I need all of this to be in house. because otherwise the knowledge is not compounding for us to, again, you're in a technical product, you're in a product that is difficult to talk about and sell. You're in a product in which the customers are very very demanding of all of the messaging, the product itself, as well as like how you put yourself out there. Because the CIO of Zora, who's like Zora as a customer, is not going to be wanting to be associated with a brand that can put out like without thinking something on social. So all of this has to come into account when we put out something or when we say something. And as we grow, and this is an enterprise organization, obviously we are selling to enterprises and we think like an enterprise, the risky factor of like putting something out diminishes as you grow bigger and bigger. And so you have to be aware of all of these things as you do. The only way that it can compound is when you have an in-house team.
Yeah. How do you work with sales? Just curious.
So I think it's very easy to work with sales at this stage, Jaideep. I don't think it only gets tougher and tougher as organizations grow. But at this stage, the early stage that we are in, I don't think we look at it like, this is sales, this
So
is,
you drive
I
demand
think
gen, right? As well?
I drive demand gen as well, but we also are an outbound driven company. I do have like a hand in bringing in inbound, but that's not what we index on. We have a new head of sales, Eric, in the US, like, very experienced and also comes from Freshworks. And like the thing is, the GTM team, Vijay Shankar and like a bunch of others, who are like very, very seasoned professionals, I just need to support them at this stage because they can do the selling. Like these people don't need my help in sort of like, explaining
Yeah.
to the customer what needs to be done and so on.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they need support, they need decks, they need content, they need people to come and see and like for example mailers, can you do the correct job of giving them the message and so on. I think we have done not that well in this regard, but that's not because of like, I think that's mostly because of time and like the number of things we are trying to do. Vijay also keeps saying that you guys try to do too much. But the thing is, in this aspect, I don't think at this stage it's that difficult to work with sales. I don't think it should be ever. You know, only what happens is like when you're 6 years, 7 years down the line, sometimes organizations become siloed, and I think we have fought very hard not to, let that happen
Yeah.
at this early stage, and it's not happened because we're a small team. So that means that at this stage you have to work together. If you don't, I was telling this to somebody, in our sales org. I was like, we were discussing, what happened with it. I was like, I don't care. I don't care where the lead has come from. I am not interested. Like, have we converted them? What do you need to convert them? What do you need for the next conversation? Just tell us that. I don't care whether it's coming from us, coming from you, coming from Vijay's contacts. Nobody cares. Like, we just need to move ahead. How do we move ahead?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great attitude because otherwise it's so easy to get into your own, mental game to say that, hey, you know
Yes.
what, I being a marketing team, I need to have this credit, and I'm going to spend half a day or one day just to find out from where this has come, right? So I
I
think,
think we can't afford to,
yeah,
Jaideep. I think, sorry to interrupt, but I don't think we can afford to because startups are difficult as it is. Startups at this time are are more difficult. And if you try to do all this drama, at this stage, you'll just shoot yourself in the foot. The other thing is that I don't think you should see yourself as separate teams at all. Like, I don't like marketing, especially in the era we are in. Sort of, I think Vijay has to be sort of Vijay is basically the face of the org, right? He's the marketing face of the org. And I prefer it in that way because of obviously the experience and the depth and everything he brings. And he controls all of the elements of what is going on. So in social, in all of this, my engineering team, our product team, all of them have stakes in taking our marketing ahead. So there is no marketing team. There is a marketing function within the larger marketing team. I think we have to look at it that way. And every member of the org is part of the marketing structure that way. Because everything that you do, everything that you put out, everything that you talk about is something that can help us. I think we have to see, it's very difficult to do so as well. Like, I've tried to do this before. But I think in some way, Atomicwork is good at this because small team, we're very close. And I think we've been able to sort of like get that culture across.
yeah, I think that's really good to hear. I mean, honestly, that level of maturity and the level of clarity probably is what is helping you today, and hopefully will continue to help in that, because I think a lot of people get kind of carried away with that kind of a mess, which is easy to snowball and to get bigger junk. So this is a good segue to sort of ask me. So what do you think as a founder, or let's say founder-led branding?
Yes.
What is your thought on that?
I think we are a founder-led brand.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think, especially
Do you
the
think
more
it is
technical you get,
mandatory or it depends
no,
on your founder?
depends on the founder as well, right? I know several of my friends who are founders who are not very, who are not very comfortable with them being the face of everything and so on and so forth. And I think that, but Vijay is flamboyant, like knows his stuff, is willing to put himself out there, and understands marketing because he's done marketing as well before, like bit of a bit of an all rounder our guy. So like what happens with that is that when you have an organization that is trying to sell to enterprise, for example, like we are, you're also selling credibility. And you alluded to this in one of the questions, right? How can an organization trust that this startup in from the valley, and with offices in Bangalore, will be able to like do this thing for us? And a lot of the credibility at an early stage is the founders credibility. All three of the founders of Atomicwork are people with like tremendous experience and tremendous success, and so therefore it is becomes easier to bet on it. It would be stupid of me to not use that as the base on which to build the marketing of the company. I don't think it's a decision I took either. It was just organic. We knew that Vijay was going to be the center of what we built our brand on.
Got it. So, what are the key strategy that you think works from a branding standpoint when if you're doing, let's say, a founder-led branding, right? What are the tactics, so to put, at this
I think
stage,
so.
keeping
I
in
think
mind?
we haven't sat down and like said that this is the tactics, because again, like as I told you, like the first layer of this is already clear to
No, no,
us
I'm
in
asking
a
this
certain
question
way.
because you
Um,
also worked in Freshworks, which is again at a 0 to 1 stage, right? When it was at zero to
yes,
one stage, and
yeah.
this is your second or third 0 to 1, third 0 to 1, I think, right?
This is my third. This is my third zero to
So
one. Yes.
Wingify was also 0 to 1 when you joined.
Wingify's second product, it was called Push Crew. I
Okay.
was their first head of marketing. I led that from zero to around 3 million.
Okay, yeah. So I want you to step back and think of not specifically about atomic work, but in general. What were the two or three things that you would do? I know that this can be subjective to the founder's credibility. From sometimes they are serial entrepreneurs. They have done that multiple times, so their maturity level, their knowledge to that extent will be a lot more than the first time founder. I mean, right? But if you were to give away, like, okay, these are two, three things that one can try leading with founder brand, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it differs a lot based on the different kinds of customers you're going after, um, and different kinds of people you want to build trust with. I think when you say customers you're going after, there's a little bit of a connotation that we don't want. But mostly what you're trying to do as a founder, in a stage like this, is to establish credibility as well as recognizability in the domain, as well as make people understand that you're actually here trying to build a product that is going to last for a long time. How do you do that? One, by making yourself the face of the org and what it's attempting to do. So, which is part of the messaging. If you see that Vijay had a talk earlier this year at Pink, which is an ITSM conference, with another ITSM influencer, part of the Pink's research team, and he talked about Agentic, AI, and how he wanted to use that to transform ITSM and ESM. So now that's one part of doing it. He needs to be the face of what we do. He needs to talk about it. He needs to put the views of the organization out there, and he needs to use all the touch points that are available to him to advance that claim to why we exist and why we are attempting to solve this problem in the first place. And I think that's one huge tactical thing that we were able to get right early, or Vijay was able to get right early. The next thing is keeping yourself in the news cycle. Vijay is incredibly good at it. Why? Because this is a time in which we are, as you know, we are talking about agentic AI, we're talking about AI and how it is solving problems, and Vijay is building in it. And so there are a lot of people interested in the decisions that he's making across the org, across product engineering and marketing and sales and GTM. And so therefore immediately, he is able to talk about it and people are able to listen. And what that attracts, it attracts attention from all across the board. And I've said this several times. When I say the same thing, people don't listen. They know I'm the head of marketing. They know my job is to say things. But when Vijay says things to the target audience, they understand that this is somebody who's actually trying to solve a problem. His credibility is actually on the line in all of this. Not that my credibility isn't, but his is more. But the thing is that these are the couple of things that starting out we did really well. But as it goes along, as we have like got support from the valley, from a fund as big as Khosla, as important as Khosla. So what that does is it sort of drives home the point of what we're attempting to do. So the signals have to be persistent, and the signals have to be very, very important signals. They can't be, you can't like send, okay, there's a word for it. You can't have narrative dissonance. which is like something goes in one direction, something goes in another direction. And I think that's what we've been able to do well.
Got it. Got it. So before I jump into the other segment, one last question I wanted to ask you regarding this. What do you think are the challenges building a brand sitting in Bangalore or in India, especially for the audience in the Valley or in the US, which is probably the
Oh,
largest market?
wow. The problems are huge. The problems are immense. If we were building it for, like, see, like, it's also weird because I've only done this for the US throughout my career as well. But I'll be honest in that it's getting more and more difficult. There was a time in the earlier decade when I think you can still build an, okay, I'll rephrase. I think you can still build an inbound brand out of India or the Philippines or anywhere, or Indonesia or Thailand, anywhere in the world to sell worldwide. You can still build an inbound engine. It has to be like very, very smartly done, and it is more difficult, but it still can be done. But if you're trying to build an enterprise marketing engine, which is mostly outbound, needs a lot of like touch points for people to sort of be convinced by you, it is going to get more and more difficult. It has got incredibly difficult already. Firstly, the post-pandemic world, people are now very, very careful of trusting another product that is not in front of them. So you need boots on the ground. You need people to be there. You need people for them to call and say, also because you, like, this is an enterprise product, you're asking them for a lot of money to do this for them, because it's an important problem to solve for them as well. But they need people to call, they need people to see, and so therefore it is incredibly difficult. It has become incredibly difficult to build that brand out of elsewhere in the world, at least for an enterprise marketing engine. And so therefore, if you can see, a lot of the decisions that we have taken have gone along that way as well. Vijay is in the US now,
Okay, I thought
he's
he's
moved.
based out of Bangalore. Okay,
No.
he's
He's
moved to
moved. He's
US.
just in the,
Okay,
yeah. He's it's just in the last processes of like moving there, and so like he's basically based in Palo Alto, throughout. And this is a very, very important decision. We had to take it because just the business we are trying to build cannot sort of have a face that is not in the region where we're selling. And if you see, our sales and GTM teams are completely based in the US. Our chief business officer, Lennon Galley, he's based in, like, he's a veteran, like he's been there 20 years. So like, he's also been right there. And so that way it's getting more and more difficult. And if you see the decision that we are taking, it's that we have to be a US company. There's no two ways
yeah,
about it.
I think for the enterprise business, right, where largely it is relationship driven. So I think the face is very, very critical and essential, and that cannot be substitute or sort of subsided by those long distance calls always, right?
No,
Um,
no chance, no
yeah,
chance.
at least in the enterprise, if it is a point solution,
Yes, as I said, if it's an SMB solution, inbound is your larger sort of like, distribution channel, or like, marketing channel, then sure, you can still do it.
yeah, and I think one of the large part, at least, of enterprises this in-person events. I think that really plays probably
Yes,
a large
huge
role.
role.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a game of money. I think so. You guys already had Series B, I guess, right?
No, it's a Series A.
Series A,
Series A
42
from
million.
Khosla. No, the combined funding
One is
all
42.
with our seed and
42.
Series A is 40 million.
40 million. So I think it's still early stage. Seems like so far touch wood, good stuff. So let me now switch to a
Thank you.
little bit, which I really want to unpack from you, is that we spoke about through this entire conversation so far, but a little more deeper in terms of anybody who's starting today as 0 to 1,
Hmm.
right? What's the really the playbook in terms of give maybe one or two scenarios, and because you have worked through 2 3 different scenarios, that part, what should they talk about? And we can get down to very specific things, like in terms of inbound, in terms of content, in terms of channel selections, in terms of nowadays a lot of brands do podcast. That has become like almost de facto.
Hmm.
Webinars. What are the initial 90 days to 120 days tactics that you would suggest, or maybe even 90 to 180 days, 6 months, to just you know get off the ground, right? If you can sort of, because you've done that multiple times, I'm just
Yeah,
curious, how would you do that, even if you have to start today again, 0 to 1?
yeah. And you want me to break this down both for like an SMB as well as
SMB
like.
as well as enterprise, yeah, that would be.
Okay, so I think the answer to that question can be in a couple of ways. Um, I'll try to answer it from a marketer's perspective. I think one, if we are trying to build a brand very quickly, which is like, the 0 to 1 journey. I have a lot of like counterintuitive things that people generally don't agree with, but the first person you should hire is a content marketer. But I don't know if that applies in the post AI age, because you can get a lot of things done with AI, but I still think there is a bunch of things you can do that you need to do, because content cannot be produced without your basics in place. And this applies both for like SMB as well as like enterprise. You need to know
And
what your
what are those
positioning is.
basics? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you need to know what your positioning is, who you're targeting, what you're targeting. So sometimes what happens is, like, a lot of products are made, and then they're trying to figure out who this is for and all of that. So that's not a marketing problem, that's a product problem. And so, like, that's something that you have to have the vocabulary to tell the founder very, very early, that hey, like, this is not something that marketing can solve. You haven't built a product for anybody. Like, are you clear what this product is for? And only when you have sort of positioned that clearly can you focus on growth. Otherwise, what happens is, you can keep talking about, hey, this is a product for X, but if you're not very clear about who it is for, what problem it is solving, it's just there, the marketer can't do much.
So
And so
should you be
therefore the
doing
first
this?
part.
Sorry, should you launch
Oh yeah,
or
yeah, you should, of course,
it's like
yes.
minus
But
30
the
days,
thing
minus
is,
60 days, or minus 90 days, whatever?
yeah, but then the world is not a perfect place, Jaideep. I don't
It
think,
is. It is not.
founders,
Yeah.
at that stage, they will also you have to give respect to the builders, right? They're trying to build something. They may not. I've worked with a little bit of seasoned founders, so they will always have these answers, right? But a lot of them don't, and that's fine. But the thing is, you have to have this conversation with your marketer about, like, okay, are we clear about who we are going after? If we're clear about going after them, then let's start marketing. What is this product for? What is this product? Who is it for? What is it going to do for them? What is the larger problem we are solving? Have you put it all in this place? As you start writing about it, see, when you talk now, you can BS a lot. When you write, you can't, because the words show up. You're like, this is
True.
BS. So when you write down, and when you try to write a blog, when you try to write, your messaging, your positioning statements, it's very clear that you do have no idea what you're talking about. So it sends you back to the drawing board very quickly, and so therefore you start there. And I think if you're able to get this right, most of your marketing is done. After that is just a point of like tactical execution of these things. It's a wonder to me how even at this, I don't say mature, we are still at a certain early stage in the startup ecosystem. Not very early, but definitely still early, because even as Vijay says, there's a lot to come, in the startup ecosystem, especially in India. People don't have these answers, and so it's better to go slow to go fast, rather than put yourself out there, announce your funding, announce all of it, and then be like, hey, what the hell do you guys do? Nobody knows, and you don't have an explanation for this, that is repeatable as well. And I think that that's what the start should be, whether you're SMB, whether you're enterprise. After that, you can figure out, okay, what is this customer looking for? How are they talking about us or the domain? Then build, sort of like reverse engineer your marketing story to sort of go along with it. I think, again, this is not easy to do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask you this question because this is an important juncture, right? So, what happens during the stage, during this period? A lot of founders, a lot of teams try to find out the PMF, right? Right. And what happens, you do a bit of back and forth, just checking that, okay, I know that at times there are pivots that happens a little bit here and there based on just finding the right PMF, which is like super early stage. And let's say you have done certain way of messaging, and I've done that for 3 months, 4 months, and only to realize that now we need to pivot a little bit, because I think from a business standpoint, we are seeing that the opportunity is slightly this side, not this side. I'm just making it up a little
yeah,
bit, and therefore I
yeah,
need to change my positioning and messaging slightly differently
yes,
now, right?
yes. But I also think that PMF has become a concept that is constantly shifting now. There was a point,
Agreed.
in the earlier decade, when we could say we have attained PMF, and then scale is the next part. I don't think that is ready now, because the market is so fast moving. Even for example, us, at Atomicwork, we have this idea that these are our customers. In 6 months later, the technology will move, and we may be selling something else. And so the positioning has to move along with it as well. The messaging has to move along with it as well. So therefore, the larger problem is where your focus should be, rather than attain. I don't think, and this is very funny, because you're right. I haven't heard this term in some time, because of especially this PMF is now an evolving thing. It's not static.
And indeed, if you look at track the journey of brands like Slack, brands like Calendly, brands like which are purely internet-born companies and solved one problem at a time, right? They're more a point solution kind of thing. At least that is how they started off it.
Correct.
They over the years, in the last maybe 6, 8, 10 years, their messaging, how they evolved, it's an interesting thing. I know it is some time back.
Exactly. I'm very happy you brought this up, because like this is something we have spoken about, as a marketing team, and as like, with Vijay and like Aparna, our head of product, and everybody. All of these, as you can see, as these companies grow, right? Like leave Slack. Like I think the better example would be even the ServiceNows, the
Yeah,
Salesforces,
yeah, yeah.
the behemoths of the world. Their entire way of talking about themselves has shifted dramatically. And I think that's a cue for all of us to also understand that the world is now not the world it used to be, and we have to be much more nimble as startups than before.
Especially when you are at that stage, one of the ways actually that really I have seen some people have done now mastered it well is that initial phases they kept the positioning and messaging very close to the product and
Yes,
not the broader
yes,
brand, right? uh,
yes,
but as the
yes.
time progressed,
You're very spot on. I'm very happy. Yes,
so you had that room to actually sort of pivot, move, shift, because as a brand you also account for a lot of things. Your personality is not specific to only your at the beginning. Yes,
absolutely.
at the beginning your product is almost equal to your corporate brand, but as you grow, right, that keeps sort of bigger, the corporate brand piece, and you have one product to multi-product, and then you have maybe multiple audiences, so that becomes slightly complex architecture as you sort of mature through that.
Absolutely. No, I think that's the perfect way to put it. I couldn't have put it better myself. And I think that understanding for marketing is really important, because marketing likes to hit from a strong base. Sorry to bring about cricket here, but I do love the game. And like the thing is, the best way for you to hit a long ball is when your base is set, when your center of gravity is low, and you're either situated on the back foot or on the front foot. So like you have to have a solid base. Marketing loves to play like that, because once you have a solid base, you can swing, and the swings are much more powerful that way. But right now the sands are shifting, and I think marketing has to sort of evolve with the idea that the sands are going to be shifting constantly. You're going to be hitting from bases that are not as solid as they used to be for you. And so when you're hitting from not that base, it means you shouldn't only look to hit straight. You have to see, to your side, piche, aage, to see if there are runs anywhere else to be had.
Especially when you have a technology as a play, right? Because that is shifting
Yes.
very rapidly as opposed to the internal problems, because internal problems, or more specifically the the functional problems fundamentally remain same, whether it is sales, marketing, IT. Yes, they have grown bigger, they have more nuances and more complexities, but principally they haven't changed, but technology is shifting, and as a reason
Yes.
of that everything is changing, because that is having a
Yes.
bigger impact.
And we have to have the humility as marketing teams to sort of
Oh yes.
understand the primacy of product and engineering in what we do these days. Even like it was always the case. It's not like, the product is the heart of what we do. If the product is not there, there is no, and the product is not there, there's nothing for us to do. Even in the last decade, it was true, but it's much more truer now. Your product, engineering, and technology are the heart of like the startup and the company you're trying to build. And marketing is, I wouldn't say support function, but it's definitely the flanking function. Like the core assault will happen from the product, and you have to sort of help them up to that, get to the stage. But if we have that humility to understand that and sort of like position ourselves as that for the organization, we'll be much more successful.
So you spoke about your first hire was would be like a content person, right? For
Yes, should be.
inbound, right? Should be. So what are the other position that you would hire at least in the first 6 months or maybe a year?
Yeah, right.
Year
So
is actually
like
a long time
definitely,
now. Look, sounds like, but yeah, 6 months maybe.
yeah. So you should definitely have an inbound person, to sort of start figuring out all of this. And this is even the best way to do is if you know who your head of marketing is. It's easier to build a team around a leader than it is to build a team and then like hire a leader for it. It's just easier and it's just better. It's not always the case though, because you won't find the candidate. It's all like hiring is also difficult. Like we shouldn't like put it all on the founders as well. But the thing is, it's when I say inbound, when you don't know what to hire for, when you don't know what exactly your positioning is, it's better to hire the inbound person first, because the clarity will arrive at some point. The clarity will be forced upon you, as a founder and as a team. But if you have a person who you think can sort of like lead the entire thing together and has some kind of a depth, and so this is very important to understand. Marketing leaders are of different kinds. there is there may be an inbound leader, there may be an outbound leader, there may be somebody who's very good in product marketing, there may be somebody who's very good at, like, the alignment with sales. You need to understand what kind of CMO or head of marketing or director of marketing you want at what stage. This is something that people don't understand. Founders are like, hey, here's the head of marketing, do everything. But you won't hire a front end person to do a back end job. You won't hire an architect to be a QA engineer. And somehow marketers are lumped into marketers, but engineers are of different kinds. So this is a pet peeve of mine. And similar way, marketers are of different kinds. So you have to understand what kind of head of marketing you need to sort of take the company forward at that stage. And this is also something that is, and this is a slightly controversial thing that I say, and like among the marketing people, obviously my friends who are marketers and so on, I say that there are certain phases for us, and we have to understand what phase that we individually are good at and play in that phase. It's like your role in a team org, right? If your role is to come 5 down, 6 down, and finish games, that's not the role for an opener. That's not the role for a number 4 player, and so on. If your role is that of a strike bowler, your role is not that of a defensive bowler. So you have to understand what your role is and play it at that time. You cannot expect somebody to come and do something else, because the ecosystem is now mature enough for you to understand what your role is.
Yeah, in the
Um,
leadership term, we call it situational leadership.
Yes, exactly. And I think especially marketing has to be the most nimble among all of this, because see, as I said, I just told you, some time ago about marketing being different at different stages, right? And so if you're building an inbound focused company, look for the inbound head of marketing who's very good at that, who's done that before. If you're trying to build an outbound team, there will come a time when, the team, you will need that exact skill set as the leader. If you're going to do like road shows, if you're going to be very field oriented, get a CMO who's done that before, who's expert in building a brand of that sort. And if these are different people, and this is my controversial opinion, and if these are different people, it's fine. As a marketer, we have to be aware of the company's evolution, because companies scale faster than we as people do. And if the company needs a different person at a different moment of time, you have to be aware as a marketer to sort of either move or give way, or like share responsibility, because you cannot bring all the skill sets to the table at the same time. And I think this is something that even when people hire, they should be very, very aware of as they're doing it. I'll give an analogy on this. Like, there is a very good analogy that I give my friends all the time. West Indies won the T20 World Cup twice, I think, consecutive editions. I forgot the years now. In both of these, Darren
75
Sammy
and
was the
79,
captain.
I think.
No, that's the ODI World Cup. I'm
Acha,
talking about the
the
T20 World
T20.
Cup.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is the time when they were not very powerful as a cricketing unit outside of the T20 world. And Darren Sammy was their captain both times. So Darren Sammy, and then he now has a stadium named after him, in the island where he was born. But Darren Sammy was a great captain. If you took, if you said, was Darren Sammy the best batter in that, West Indies lineup? No. Was he the best bowler? No. Was he even the third best batter or the third best bowler? No. His role was captain, and he led that team to 2 World Cups. So the role clarity of that particular individual, and that's it. Like, he led them to 2 World Cups and retired, because that was what he was bringing to the team. That was his contribution to the team, and he was very aware of that. That was what he was about to do. He did that and he retired. And now this is what this is what people don't get, that when you have role clarity, you can deliver at a place which is very you can deliver at a level that is very, very, very high.
Yeah, yeah. No, agreed. So I think that level of agility and flexibility and humility along with that probably plays a key role on that. And also, of course, the camaraderie within the founding members and so on, right? I think that also goes a long way. So switching back a little bit on here, so you have been, it seems like it's a conscious choice that you have again and again gone to 0 to 1 stage.
Yes.
And so, what is your rationale and analogy? I mean, help me out with your thinking. How do you think about it? Because I know it comes with a significant of risk appetite and risk taking abilities as well, right? It's not easy for someone to go 3 times 0 to 1, start from zero again. What is that that excites you, and what is that that gives you that courage to take such decisions?
Like, in a way it's because I think I'm suited to it, and in a way it's also because I'm lucky. I think I'm lucky enough to have been given the opportunity to work with very, very strong founding teams, and in which, like, by far, it took a little bit of time to find my footing in. As I said, this is my third 0 to 1, right? Like, at Freshworks, I was there. It was not as if, like, it was not I had any, like, say in any of the things that were going on. I was very young. It was my first job. But I got really lucky in that, I was able to work with that team, and I'm forever thankful to Girish for giving me that opportunity. But in my second one at Wingify, I also had the backup, which was Pushkru was the second product of an already $20 million company. So, and also it was bootstrapped. So I didn't have the time pressure to sort of deliver something or the other. So I took a lot of time, by the way. My first 6 or 7 months, I was getting my bearings. But I took a lot of decisions right in that phase so that the acceleration came very quickly. We went from, as I said, zero to almost like 3 million. We didn't get to 3 million when I was there. We got to it later, but we went to almost, $3 million in a time span of like 18 months. And this includes the time that I'm talking about, the 6 months in which I was setting things up. So the 1 year acceleration was very quick. Why? So that was the second part. And the third part is here at Atomicwork, where I do lead marketing, and I was part of the founding team from the early stage, where I think I can take a little bit of credit, not too much. Again, as I said, the product, the leadership, and the engineering is the heart of is the heart of what we do, and what actually accelerates stuff. I can take a little bit of credit for understanding what we were doing and helping everybody accelerate. So that way, these are the 3 0 to 1s I've been part of. I think the act of creation is something that excites me. You're pulling something out of thin air. Like Freshworks didn't exist before Girish thought it up. When I was there, the marketing team didn't exist. The kind of marketing motion I was putting together, even I did not know I could. And then I did it. At Atomicwork, again, like when we started, we just had a name and some money. And today, I'll tell you a win. Somebody was, on a Reddit forum, somebody was talking about, was it Reddit? Somewhere else, but somebody was talking about how they were evaluating different ITSM platforms. And they were like, I evaluated ServiceNow, I evaluated Fresh Service, I evaluated Atomicwork, I evaluated Halo ITSM. In a time span of 2 years, we've inserted ourselves into the consideration set. 2 years ago, we did not exist. So I think that is the high of 0 to 1 of of
So,
creating
so
something from
can you
scratch.
share a little bit in that context? What was the Freshworks journey like? What different roles that you played, or maybe one role that you played,
Oh
and
wow.
what was your key takeaway, the key learning that when you reflect back in that?
One of my key learnings was that patience is really important in the startup journey, and resilience is really important in the startup journey, especially because at a larger level, I am very optimistic about Atomicwork. Optimistic is a mild word. Like, I'm absolutely bullish about what we've done. I'm like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like, I have like a lot of these ideas and all of that. But at an everyday level, it's bloody frustrating, because you're trying to pull things out of thin air. You're like, building, this doesn't come out right, and you still are working with, you're not like an enterprise, right? I don't have unlimited resources at my disposal, and you also have only 24 hours in a day. So you're trying to do so much, but you're also getting frustrated by your own inability to sort of like scale. This is what I learned at Freshworks, that you have to be okay with it, that things compound and you have to come at it. And I think I did not do a lot of things well at Freshworks, honestly. I was very talented, and my talent took me to a certain level. But talent has to be accompanied by discipline and hard work to sort of get anywhere in your career and for your organization as well. And I think that is all the learning that I have from Freshworks that I'm trying to do, because the day to day has to be frustrating. This is difficult work. We don't do it because it's easy. We do it because at the end of it is something that you've created. And so if that is what you have to do, resilience becomes incredibly important. And I think that is something that I wish I knew at Freshworks, but I certainly learned that.
I think obviously I like your humility to say that as individuals we sometimes deny certain facts, don't reflect enough, and therefore we don't learn. We keep doing same mistakes, right?
Yes.
So it is important to look back and see that what really worked and what did not, right?
Yeah.
And what did not, did I do? Was it enough? I mean, was it important to take some corrective measures to improve? Because I'm going to
Yeah.
face the same situation probably next again, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
making sure that not to
And
repeat that.
the one thing that I would add is, like, perhaps you have to have mentors,
Hmm. Very
and you have to
important.
find the correct ones. I think I've gotten very lucky with the founders I've worked with throughout: Girish, Paras Chopra, and now Vijay Rayapati. And the thing is that I've been very, like, and this is something of a mental thing for me. I will only work with people whom I can listen to. And like, if somebody gives me a bad vibe, I generally don't work with them. But like, the thing is, like, I want to be in a room with somebody who can tell me what to do, and I may disagree or agree with it, but I'm willing to give them that time of day and say, Vijay has this point, let me go figure it out. And I think that Vijay has really helped me in this respect. And so I will not say it to his face, but I can say it now. But the thing is that in a lot of ways, he's pushed the bar for me really, really high. As I said, I know I have talent. You cannot get to a certain level without having talent, right?
True.
But the talent has to be applied, and sometimes the pressure has to be sort of like ratcheted up for the application to happen. And Vijay is a no holds barred boss. Like he's absolutely full on all the time. Everybody's feeling the pressure and all of that. It certainly helped me. Is it tough? Oh yeah, it's tough. Life is tough. Like what can you do about it?
Yeah.
So, and I think I have allowed myself to sort of like enjoy that environment, which I will not say to him, but I do enjoy it. But the thing is that
Yeah.
you have to find these mentors throughout for you have to find the correct people for them to guide you towards better places in your career.
Totally agree. Totally agree. You need to build certain amount of mass to build muscle, and to build muscle, you need to go through pain. And growth has pain involved. When you grow, you have pain. So yeah, of course, which means you are growing. So that's
Absolutely.
assured. Quickly, want to switch in one particular question that I want to touch upon. We don't need to speak maybe in detail, but just curious, what kind of Martech stack that you have, and at this stage.
Yeah, I think ours is a fairly standard Martech stack, Jadip. It's not, there's nothing fancy going on. HubSpot is what we use. We have things like our B2B factors, to sort of like help us with like the ABM and the outbound that we do. We do test a lot of tools. Like my growth person is like really really savvy with them, and he's always constantly touching, trying out new stuff, which we make fun of, but it's like incredibly useful as well because we know what's happening in the marketing world. But it's a fairly standard marketing stack. I think and I've never been a fan of this in marketing. In marketing, your tech can't do anything that you are not able to elevate. I think if we are good at anything, we are extremely good at the basics of marketing, and which immediately elevates us to like 60-70% in the percentile. And what we are even better at, I think, is doing it again and again and again. We are better at coming back the next day and doing it again and again and again. And I think we are combining that with superiority in product marketing now. And once we get to that level, I think we'll be even better.
Yeah, agree. So now I want to switch to a bit of your personal side. You, as a marketing leader and also representing SaaS B2B, um, based on what I have seen and I have tracked you online, you are fairly active, giving, you have a voice, in various forum, you have spoken online, offline, and you are quite active in the community. Can you tell me, like, what drives you,
Two things actually. One is
and
that
how you are
I
involved
saw
in
the
that
magic of
community,
what.
if you can, if you can add to that. Sorry, how you are.
Sure. So two things, as I said. One part is the magic of like watching things happen. When I was employee number 8 at Freshworks. We were two people, so we were 8 people in like two rooms, right? And then by the end of it, like even today in the office, like there's like 2,000, 3,000 people, 2,000 people now in that office, and so on. And you've seen how many lives, an act of like creation and entrepreneurship changes. How many people's careers were built, how many people's lives were changed, how many people's families now are living better, and so on. So a huge part of like why I try to do a little bit back, and honestly, like a lot of people do a lot more than I do, but whatever I do is part so that something like that can happen. If in a small way, like I'm able to contribute to something like that happening again, it means imagine the number of families whose lives have changed. And that's not just one part, right? The economy is not just primary. The secondary, impact, the tertiary impact, in that the shops outside our office, like everybody grows, and we need that growth, like as a country and as an economy. That's one part. The second part of it is that I was very active in SaaS Boomi. In the early stages of my career. Now I don't have time also because like I wasn't a leader then. Like now I have a whole team, who I'm in charge of, as well as like I have more responsibilities. I've also become older and I have like family responsibilities as well. And so I'm not able to spend that much time. But I've changed that into sort of writing. I write this newsletter, and that is the second part of what I was trying to do,
The
trying to
CMO
tell
journal,
you
right?
in the early stages. Yes, it's the CMO journal. I've been writing it for 5 years now, actually.
Wow.
This
I
month's the
didn't
fifth
realize
year.
that. Okay.
Yes, this is the fifth year. I started in March 2020, and this is April 2025. I've been
Congratulations
writing it
for
for
that.
5 years. No, thank you. It's by far the longest thing I've done continuously, so I'm very happy about it. So the thing is, the reason I started writing it was because when I started my career, nobody told me what to do. Basically, as an early stage marketer, nobody there is nothing written from the perspective of an Indian trying to sell software to the world, on how to improve yourself, how to have skills, how to act in like certain situations with your founders, with managers, and all of that. And I realized that when this did not exist, the best way to do it was like write whatever I had down to sort of help people. I There's a friend of mine, I spoke to him on his podcast, and I said this is the same thing I said. It's I do it because nobody gave us anything at that time. Nobody had the information. Oh, sorry, the information must have been there, but it wasn't available to us, at that stage. And I think a huge part of why I write the newsletter is that somebody young can look at it and be like, and if they learn like a couple of things that can help them not make the mistakes that I made, then I'll be really grateful for that. And I think that's why I write the newsletter. And a huge part of how I do it is that even I used
Yeah,
to
I have
do,
gone through.
I used to work
Hmm.
with startups before. Sorry,
Sorry,
Jadip,
please
I
go
didn't
on.
get that. Yeah, yeah. So even
No, I
now,
said, yeah, please go on. I
I
think.
used to work with startups and founders on that early stage stuff a little bit before. These days, I'm not able to. But even when I do get time, whenever some founders ask me, "Hey, Sai, how should you do this?" and all of that, and they always ask me, "Sai, how much for like 1 hour of your time, 2 hours of your time?" I say nothing doing. Like I'll spend an hour. I'll spend 2 hours happily. Even if I give you a couple of things that you can work on, it'll be very useful. So I'm able to do that. I'm grateful I'm able to do that.
Awesome, awesome. And this newsletter comes once in a week, once in a month.
It's supposed to come once in a week, but it depends on work at Atomicwork. If it hasn't come for 2 weeks, it means Vijay has given me a lot of stuff to do. Uh, and if
Work
uh,
has kept
and
you.
if it arrives quickly, it means I've had some time to think. Yeah, if it's arriving properly, it means it's time to think. But yeah, I do try to write it weekly.
Got it. So I'll share the link of your newsletter. What are the things that you do to keep yourself updated? Do you read? Do you uh, subscribe to newsletters or watch podcasts?
Yeah,
What do you do to keep yourself updated? Apart from, of course, speaking with your peers, I guess.
yeah, it's mostly podcasts. Like I subscribe to like almost all the podcasts, marketing leaders podcasts, and I have a habit of walking. I walk a lot. So in general, I'm able to like listen to a bunch of podcasts, especially early in the morning. uh, a 1 hour walk is like one full podcast very happily, and that gives me an update on like what's happening in the marketing world. Yeah.
Awesome. I would be curious if you can share any resources you think will be good for the community, and I can put their links, or whether it
No,
is a
absolutely, I
podcast
will. I'll send you some
reference
stuff.
or anything else, and we will add that to our show note. And where can people find you?
Absolutely, I'll be happy to share.
Where can people find you, Sai?
The best place to find me is on my Twitter, where I'm pretty active. It's underscore Sairam Krishnan on Twitter, or X, I should say. And my newsletter is the cmojournal.com, and I write constantly there, and I don't intend to stop. LinkedIn is also fine. Like I am also fairly active on LinkedIn. You can find me. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll add all of these details to the show note. With that, let's wrap up. But I think what a fabulous 90 minutes or so. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights and your learning, also including your share of failures and other stuff, right? So great, Sai. I think I couldn't have asked for more. Thank you so much for sharing.
No, no, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation, especially. I think sometimes what we do is we don't look over our stuff. Every day is the next day, and I think it's happy to have had this conversation.
Great. So, with that, we'll wrap up here. And in the next episode, we'll meet another leader sharing some more wisdom. With that, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sai.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.